Namaste, guys. ChristianRLong, life enhancement consultant, giving you a big and beautiful shout out on this Friday evening here in Denver, Colorado. It's about 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time, and it's been snowing for almost an entire day. Kim, Namaste. Good to have you on as always. Jaime, Namaste. Welcome. So it's been snowing in Denver almost all day. Super, super cold. Not super, super cold, like 30 degrees, 25, 30 degrees out, kind of fluctuating. But it's been snowing. So we have about a foot, roughly, in Denver. And who knows when the snow will stop. I think it's supposed to stop this evening. But it's been interesting hearing the cars sliding around on the street. Chris, Namaste. Chris actually posted something funny about where he's at. 2 feet of snow. Always bragging. More snow in my neck of the woods. But it's been interesting to see people like moving around, scattering around, trying to get out of their parking spots over here. It is what it is, right? If you live in a mountain, if you live 5,280 feet above sea level, you're kind of in the mountain area and it's going to snow. And you just got to deal with it. What's interesting? I come from Massachusetts, and we have way worse snowstorms that last way longer, that are miserable, but people don't go to Massachusetts to go skiing and snowboarding. They go to Colorado to go skiing and snowboarding. But it's like when it snows in Colorado, people forget how to drive. It's like they've never seen snow before. It's really weird. I haven't quite figured it out. I've lived in Denver for about 7 years. This will be my 8th year living in Denver, and I still don't know why people don't know how to drive in the snow in a mountain town that gets a lot of snow. Who would have thought? So, I want to jump on real quick with you guys, share some nuggets from my teacher, Grandmaster Chogo Koksui, that I think will add value and benefit to your life. And feel free to throw out a question, a comment, anything you want to say in regards to the topic that we're going to be covering tonight. And this book that I'm recommending to you guys is one of the greatest books ever written on the chakras. One, it's straight to the point, like razors sharp, straight to the point. 2, super easy to read. And 3, it contains more information than other books that I've read about this topic, but it's a smaller book. So it has very accurate information, very detailed information, to the point, and it's thinner than most any book I've ever seen covering the chakras. Now, obviously, I'm going to be a little bit partial because the person who wrote this book is my teacher, Grandmaster Chogo Koksui. It's kind of a compilation of a couple of his other books into one book, but this book is a standalone book. So it's called The Chakras and Their Functions. The Chakras and Their Functions. And I remember when I got on the spiritual path, and I was going to metaphysical bookstores, and I was going to wellness centers, and I was going to places that sold, healing bowls and certain kinds of CDs that were in spas and about relaxation and meditation, and getting exposed to that world. I would always see like a picture or a book or a magazine showing somebody sitting in the lotus position and 7 lights at different parts of their bodies. And I was always like, where are those 7 lights? Like what are those 7 lights? It's like they're chakras or something, but what does that even mean? Right? Ananda, Namaste. I was like, what does that even mean? So, and I see them as different colors, right? You have like the violet, and then you have yellow, and you have green, and you have blue, or you have indigo, then you have green, you have orange, you have red. I was like, okay, so what's this all about? So I got exposed to the spiritual path through transcendental meditation that was brought to the United States in the late 50s by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Jennifer Ottman, Namaste. Good to have you on again. And so we almost never, ever, ever, ever talked about the chakras within the TM movement. Meditation, yes. Ayurveda, yes. Spirituality, yes. But we never really talked about chakras. We never really talked about Kundalini energy. We never really talked about the soul. We talked within that framework of spiritual knowledge and understanding. So when I got out of the university, Paula, namaste, when I got out of the university and started exposing myself to different schools, religions, and practices and different yogic philosophies, I was like, there's those things again, those lights and colors around different parts of the body, the chakras. All right, well, whatever. I never made the connection. I never picked up a book about the chakras. I just would always see them in the places that I went, but I never resonated with those books for whatever reason. Until I got introduced to pranic healing on a meditation course in Fairfield, Iowa. So I was on the meditation course. There was another girl from Vancouver, British Columbia, who was on that course, who is also a pranic healer, also an Arhatic yogi. She is the one who introduced me to pranic healing. She introduced me to chakras. I was like, chakras. First of all, I was pronouncing them as chakras, so I wasn't saying it right, because in Sanskrit, there's no sh, it's chakras. Number two, that there's not just 7, as I had been reading and seeing in these books and on these magazine articles and on these posters, there's not just 7 chakras, there's more. So why do we talk about 7 chakras? And I learned that also within pranic healing. So it's interesting. If I ask you the question, how many chakras are there? The typical person who's been to yoga class, maybe even done teacher training within yoga, read a couple books on spirituality, metaphysics, meditation, what have you, they're going to say 7 chakras. It's interesting because the 7 chakra model is about 100 years old. And there are not only 7 chakras. Nowhere does it say in the Hindu texts, Christian texts, or Muslim texts that there are only 7 chakras, or only 7 centers, or only 7 gates, or only 7 fruits. Nowhere does it say only. Dina Namaste, that's the problem, that we make the assumption that there's only 7. Well, about 100 years ago, a spiritual organization out of Europe, out of the UK, called Theosophy, had very high-level clairvoyance, people who could see energy, and very high-level spiritual practitioners and meditation teachers. And they developed a whole system called Theosophy, or the study of God, and they wrote about the chakras. And interestingly enough, because if you're trying to introduce a concept that is foreign, what do? Do you make it complicated or do you make it simple? And also you have to make it simple, but you also have to make it relatable to what people already know and already understand, right? So, how many notes are there in music? 7. How many days of the week are there? 7. How many colors of the rainbow are there? 7. How many chakras? 7. Right? So they made it simple. They made it memorable. The other reason why they introduced the 7 chakra model is for safety. So one for simplicity, the other one was for safety. You go, well, what do you mean by safety? There's a chakra located in the lower back called the main chakra. That chakra, and any acupuncturist would know it, that chakra deals with blood pressure. So, if you manipulate it one way, you increase blood pressure. If you manipulate it another way, you decrease blood pressure. Do you think that could have a detrimental effect on somebody's health? Absolutely. And it was interesting because many years ago when I was doing a lot of service work and expos inside and outside in New York City, Queens, Brooklyn for pranic healing, we set up a booth one time under a bridge in Brooklyn and we were doing free healings. So people would just sit down and tell us what they had a condition on. And we would do healings. And at these expos, they were wellness and health expos, there are other practitioners from other schools, traditional wellness, as well as alternative wellness practices. So they had a nurse practitioner, who also had blood pressure cuffs. So I thought, I've heard about this whole manipulating the main chakra to increase or decrease blood pressure. I heard about it within pranic healing, but I'd never actually experienced it firsthand. So let me try something. So I had her hook me up, got my blood pressure. It was perfect. I think it was 120/80, perfect. And so I said, okay. I started practicing the technique. She started looking at my blood pressure, and it went up and went up and went up and went up like by 10 points. And she goes, I've never seen that before. What are you doing? I said, I'm manipulating my energy. I wasn't getting angry. I wasn't contracting my muscles or doing anything to the blood flow of my body. I was just manipulating the chakra or energy center that's connected to blood pressure. Now, the interesting thing about doing that technique, it's very easy to increase blood pressure, but it takes 2 to 3 times more effort, energy, and time to decrease your blood pressure. But I told her what the experiment was going to be before, during, and after. So she was there observing. And so I continued to do the technique, not quite in reverse, but I was doing a technique to drop my blood pressure. And I dropped my blood pressure before where it was, 120/80. And she goes, I've never seen that before either. And I go, thinking to myself, the technique works. So if a person 100 years ago had no training, no skill, but knew of a chakra that could affect blood pressure, and the person wasn't very good with their character, do you think they could use that technique to hurt another person? Yes, because if you increase the blood pressure to a certain degree, the person has a myocardial infarction and a heart attack. They drop dead, right? Not in all cases, but in a lot of cases. So, interestingly enough, Grandmaster Choa Kok Sui will not let inmates learn pranic healing, right? So if you're in prison, you cannot be taught pranic healing. You can be taught the Twin Hearts meditation, but you cannot be taught pranic healing. And if you have a felony, you cannot be a pranic healing instructor, as I understand it. I think the rules are pretty much the same since I learned them. Avani Atma Namaste. So isn't that fascinating? About 100 years ago, that's why we have the 7 chakra model, for simplicity and for safety. Now, because the world at large has grown, evolved, become more developed, mentally developed, emotionally developed, even physically developed, right? Even the physical bodies now are different than the physical bodies that were 100 years ago. So people are more, are able to learn higher techniques and teachings, realizing that there are not just 7 chakras, but there are many, many, many more chakras. In pranic healing, we work with the 11 major chakras. So we have major chakras like the crown chakra, right? Or the forehead chakra, or the ajna chakra, or the throat chakra, or the heart chakra, right? Those are major chakras. Then we have minor chakras, like the palm, the chakras in the palm, chakras in the elbow, chakras in the armpit. Those are minor chakras. Then we have mini chakras. Chakras in the tips of our fingers, temples, jaw. So temple mini, temple minor, jaw minor. So these are littler chakras. So you have major, minor, and mini. Typically the fingertip chakras are the mini chakras. Certain organs also have mini chakras as well. But what does a chakra do? A chakra spins clockwise and counterclockwise. These are energy centers in the energy world. You cannot see them with your physical eyes, but with proper training, you can scan them, you can feel them energetically, or you can see them energetically, right? So what they do is they spin clockwise and counterclockwise, absorbing energy, using energy, and then releasing or spitting out disease-congested energy. And they're doing that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not from the moment of conception, but pretty close, until you leave your physical body. Your chakras are spinning, absorbing energy, using energy, releasing energy. The reason we get sick physically, emotionally, psychologically, from an energetic perspective, is the chakras are not functioning properly. They're not absorbing energy properly, they're not using energy properly, and they're not releasing congestion properly. It would be similar to somebody who has digestive problems, right? A normal person with normal digestion would eat an apple and extract the nutrients necessary to keep the body healthy and strong, and then whatever it doesn't need or use, it pees or poops out. It releases the congestion on a physical level. So the chakras are the same thing energetically. So if they're not functioning properly, meaning they have a lot of stress energy, a lot of congestion, a lot of heaviness, they're not able to spin properly to absorb energy, use energy, and release energy. It's really, really fascinating. And this is what I've dedicated the past 16 years of my life to, not only understanding, but practicing and mastering the teachings and techniques. So again, look how thin this book is. Super duper thin. Is this the only book that's ever been written on the chakras? No. But in my opinion, it's one of the best books ever written on the chakras. But look how thin it is. Super, super thin. So, is there any specific information that you guys have about the chakras that you've always wanted to know? It may or may not be in this book, depending upon the complexity and level of your question and my ability to answer it. We'll answer it or we won't, or we'll answer a part of it. But again, the book is called The Chakras and Their Functions by Grandmaster Chogo Koksui, which is a compilation of several, or compilation, depends on how you want to say it, of several of his books into one book. Excellent, excellent book. You could read this cover to cover and know more about the chakras than probably 90% of the people on the planet. It's really quite fascinating. But again, pranic healing doesn't just work with the 7 major chakras. We work with the 11 major chakras, the minor chakras, and the mini chakras. And I remember asking a mentor of mine many years ago about the chakras and my doubt around them, if they exist. And he says, the chakras to me are as real as this table. I was like, how can that be? How can someone say that? How can something that is non-physical be more real or as real as something physical? It doesn't make any sense. I can't see the chakras with my eyes. I can't touch the chakras with my physical hands. But they're as real as the table. They're as real as the chair that I'm sitting in. How is that possible? Well, 16 years later, I know this unequivocally to be true and to be the case. Aha! Yeah, see, Ivani knows. A pranic healing practitioner. So do you notice the initial problem people had in the beginning was saying there are only 7 chakras. Nowhere does it say in the spiritual teachings and texts of any religion that there are only 7 chakras, or only 7 gates, or only 7 fruits. The key word is only. So, you didn't hear me say there are only 11 chakras. I said within pranic healing, we work with the 11 major chakras, minor chakras, mini chakras. But I'll leave you guys with this interesting story from one of the masters many, many years ago. And it's funny because I remember I experienced pranic healing firsthand in Vancouver, British Columbia, in October of 2003. And then I moved to Sarasota, Florida. Nicole, namaste. Then I moved to Sarasota, Florida And I sent out an email around January or February to a pranic healing master. This is like before social media. This is before MySpace. So the ability to connect and find people wasn't that easy. And there weren't really any pranic healing websites. There weren't that many practitioners in the world. It was actually super difficult to find anybody connected to pranic healing. But I ended up finding some random website that had a random picture of some Asian guy who looked like he had some answers. And there was an email underneath his name. And I was like, who's this person? Master Hector Ramos. I don't get it. He looks Asian, but he has a Spanish last name. That's kind of weird. Well, whatever. So I grabbed the email, send him an email, and ask him something. I don't even remember what it was. I know it was about the chakras because I was curious about the chakras because I learned about something related to the chakras in Vancouver, British Columbia. So I sent him an email, got a reply maybe a week later, which is, lightning speed back in the day, right? And I remember in that email, I don't have that email account anymore, unfortunately. But I remember in that email, this particular master in pranic healing, he says, the chakras are like the keys to a piano. If you master the keys to a piano, you can create beautiful music. Likewise, if you master your chakras, you can create a beautiful life. You can control your destiny, for lack of a better way of saying it. But I thought that was so eloquent and so beautiful and so clear. He took one metaphor, attached it to the chakras, just like the Theosophical Society took the chakras and attached it to 7 days of the week, 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 notes of music, to immediately make something ethereal and incomprehensible, understandable and comprehensible. And I'll never forget that. It's one of the greatest lessons I'd ever been given in my entire life in the world of my spiritual practice and spiritual development. And I remember years later meeting that master for the first time. And for those of you who know Master Hector, he's an extremely intelligent person, very articulate, very sensitive, an excellent clairvoyant, very humble man. And I remember sharing that with him years later, like 7 or 8 years after he sent me that email. And I remember saying, Master Hector, many years ago you said this, this, and this about the chakras and the keys to a piano and creating beautiful music and creating a beautiful life. And he was looking at me and he was smiling. He goes, wow, I said that? That is beautiful. So maybe when he sent me that email, he was channeling, he was in a different state of mind. But he was very humble about it. It was a very beautiful thing. So that, Fernando, namaste. You missed the story, son. I'll be seeing your beautiful face in a couple weeks. But isn't it interesting that we are on a path in life? Every one of us, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're on a path. We're on a path to soul growth and development, right? And we get that one story, that one example, that one nugget, that one idea that literally shapes and molds and opens up a doorway that if we have the courage and the good sense about us, we walk through that doorway and our life is forever changed. So when I was sending that email to Master Hector in the beginning of 2004, I had no idea where it would take me. Amazing, right? And it's interesting because this same teacher, this same master in pranic healing, He says what a teacher does is they say something, and that something opens up a portal in your consciousness, right? So him saying that little thing that he doesn't even remember saying, that little portal was enough for me to go through and to have my life transformed. Because after that email, I was inspired to reach out to other instructors. Somehow I was able to find them after that, interestingly enough. I was able to find other instructors within Florida, where I was living at the time, who then could come into my life, teach me pranic healing, teach me how to effectively work with the 11 major chakras, and not only transform my life, transform the life of my family members, but transform thousands of people's lives since then. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, right? It's like pretty humbling. And it has led on a quite amazing a journey. So that's why right teacher at right time as always. Yeah, when the student is ready, the right teacher will appear. And it's funny how this used to bother me as a young student in pranic healing. When I would see somebody come into pranic healing and be excited, right? Be excited about the chakras, excited about the Twin Hearts meditation, excited about healing, excited about taking the higher classes, right? A lot of excitement. And I was always like, that's awesome. Like I would share in that excitement with them. And then those people would disappear. Those people would find a different path, or they would stop practicing, or something negative would happen, and then they would fall away. And inevitably, those people's lives never seemed as bright, never seemed as shiny, Caleb, Abba Namaste, as it was when they were in pranic healing. Now, am I saying that pranic healing is the end-all, be-all for everyone's spiritual path in life? Absolutely not. But at the time, I didn't have that realization, because I thought, well, anyone who comes into pranic healing, it's the best path for them, and that's what they're supposed to stay on for the rest of their lives. Because I've been in pranic healing as a practitioner for 16 years, and my enthusiasm and excitement and joy almost has never wavered. Have I had my dips? Have I had my doubts? Have I had my uncertainties? Have I had my fears? Have I had my moments of questioning myself and questioning the teacher and questioning the technology and questioning universal spiritual truths? Yes, because I'm human, because I'm still growing and evolving, and it's part of our lower nature to doubt and have fears. But I've never once extracted myself from pranic healing, never once extracted myself from my practice and say, that does it, no more twin hearts, no more hatha yoga, no more purification practices. Never. In 16 years. Now, that doesn't make me special. That doesn't make me better than anyone else. It just makes me go, it makes me grateful that something within me has been connected to the energy of Master Choa and the energy of the organization as a whole that keeps me going, that keeps me engaged. Because I feel in pranic healing, I'm always getting fed. I feel like I'm always getting spiritually fed. I always feel like I'm getting mentally fed with mental knowledge, mental understanding, different facets and levels of truth. I feel like I'm always emotionally fed. My good feelings increase every single year. My bad feelings decrease every single year. I feel like I'm getting physically fed when I practice the physical exercises and physical purifications to become healthier, to become stronger, to become more fit, to increase my endurance and cardiovascular capabilities. So I always felt fed in pranic healing. And a good friend of mine who's been a pranic healer a little bit longer than me, actually, he said maybe 10 years into his practice, he says, look, if I find something better than pranic healing, I'll practice that. In 10 years, I haven't found anything better. So that's why pranic healing, for me and a lot of the senior practitioners, we consider it a way of life. It's not just a healing modality that's connected to cleansing the chakras, energizing the chakras. Rose, Atma Namaste. It's not this very limited scope. It's an all-encompassing, like, how do I live a better life? How do I be a better example for other people? How do I become a good person, right? So that's why I consider pranic healing or Hatha Yoga and the higher teachings of Grandmaster Chola Koksui to be a way of life, right? Just like you have people that are Catholics that go to church occasionally, and then you have people that are Catholics in the sense of they become priests and nuns. It's that level of commitment and dedication and a yearning to understand their school, their religion, and how their soul relates to it. So, yeah, it's really quite fascinating that it's a way of life. And talking about excitement, right? My early years, I was super excited. My middle years, super excited. Currently, super excited. And then I would meet people along my path that would be super, super excited. And there was a tendency that I noticed that the more excited somebody was about pranic healing, the Twin Hearts meditation, maybe even our Hatha Yoga, the more excited they were, there was a tendency for them to fall off. Because excitement can come from the solar plexus, which is very hard to sustain excitement for a long period of time. So that excitement has to go from excitement into devotion, into understanding, into wisdom, into oneness, right? So it's a progression. So you have to transcend the lower nature and go to the higher aspects of your connection to something. So I think devotion is very, very important to keep people on the path. Because somebody would say, well, are you devoted to pranic healing? Are you devoted to Master Choa? Are you like, where's this devotion focused? And the devotion is becoming a better person. And the devotion is, as I've dedicated my time, my money, my energy to pranic healing, it is given back to me 100-fold, right? So if somebody says, do this and you'll get this, and you do that and you get that over many, many years, you start going, okay, I can trust this. I can lean on this practice. I can lean on this organization. I can lean on this teacher, because when I do it, they recommend, not by coercion, not by force, but out of compassion. When I do what they recommend, my life improves. And you know what's interesting? My experience, this isn't everybody's, but my experience is when I don't do what's recommended, my life goes down. Fascinating, right? So all these little things are constantly nudging me and bumping me and hitting me to keep me as the soul on a certain path to grow and evolve. So I'm very grateful, ambulance, I'm very grateful that enough of my little self listens to my big self to keep me in alignment. Or I could fight myself all the time. I could fight my lower nature or let my lower nature take over and then ruin the show. That's also an option. Because at the end of the day, we all have free will. Like the teacher, the Master Choa says, the teacher, meaning teachers, like spiritual teachers, they point to the path, but they can't walk the path for you. They point to do your meditations. They point to do these practices. They point to do character building. But they can't meditate for you. They can't practice for you. They can't purify for you. They can't do character building for you. Only you can. Avani says, oh, I forgot to say Happy Valentine's Week. Whoop, whoop. Today, 7th February is Rose Day. You're spreading lots of love and compassion. Ooh, I love roses. Roses, I don't know if I ever shared this in the stream before. Roses are my favorite smell. Like, I don't want to talk about it. Roses, the best. A bottle, I don't have a bottle in front of me, but a bottle this big of essential rose oil, $350. About that big. $350. I think it's what? 50 rose heads to produce 1 drop of essential rose oil. It's so powerful, so potent, super healing. If you take rose oil, you clean it energetically, you bless and consecrate it, meaning you expand its benefits, you magnify its benefits, and you put it on the heart chakra, you'll bliss out in a way that you can't imagine. Even spiritual people who practice meditation regularly, if you do that, clean it energetically, consecrate it, which means a stronger link to the divine, and then you take a drop of essential, I'm getting blissed out connecting to it, a drop of essential rose oil, and you put it on your front heart chakra, you'll be blissed out of your mind. I remember many years ago, I'm starting to sound like an old person when I say that. Back in my day, when there were only 7 chakras, I remember a friend of mine who's longtime pranic healer, longtime Arhatic yogi, spent a lot of time with Master Choa doing a lot of experimentation. And he had a aromatherapy business, successful aromatherapy business. And he did a lot of experiments, energetic experiments with Master Choa and oils. And Master Choa would guide him of what to do with certain oils. So I bought Lang Lang. I love Lang Lang. That's my second favorite. And then jasmine. So it's like rose, Lang Lang, jasmine. Love them. Like, hardcore. So Lang Lang is for emotional healing. Lang Lang is for love making. Lang Lang is for relationship healing. Super powerful. So one day I was inspired by reading something that my friend wrote connected to Lang Lang and connecting it to relationships. Took this bottle of Lang Lang, cleansed it, energized it, consecrated it, and then put drops of Lang Lang in certain chakras in a certain sequence, and then thought nothing of it. My partner and I were going out for dinner with a friend and her friends. So we got, put the oils on, got dressed. She put her makeup on. I was ready to go. And we headed out the door, and it took us maybe 15 or 20 minutes to get to the restaurant. Funny enough, I live 1.5 miles from that restaurant now. But before, I lived like 30 minutes from that restaurant. Weird, right? Violet, namaste. So we're in the Indian restaurant with our friend who invited us and her friends. And all of a sudden, we start laughing. Nothing in particular. We just start laughing, and the laughter doesn't stop for 1.5 hours. We laughed nonstop for 1.5 hours. We embarrassed our friend in front of her friends. We were asked to leave the restaurant. Our friend didn't want to hang out with us anymore because for 90 minutes straight, we were, Kate, namaste, good to have you back on. We were hysterical, laughing uncontrollably. There was so much bliss, so much joy. We had no idea what was going on. We were embarrassed for ourselves. we were embarrassed for our friend, and we were embarrassed for her friends that came along to the Indian dinner. And we couldn't figure out what it was until we walked back to the car. We got in the car and she goes, "Oh, the oil." Then we just started laughing some more. I've not been able to replicate that experiment, and I have a couple ideas as to why that is. But I think I could now at this point in my practice. I could replicate what was done almost 7 years ago. So oils are extremely powerful in changing your energy state, your psychological state, your emotional state, and obviously your physical state. And because of all that laughing, what happens when you laugh? Hormones, oxytocin, dopamine flood your bloodstream and you feel blissed out, and energetically you're cleansing and purifying the solar plexus chakra. That's the chakra that holds on to stress. So when you're laughing hysterically for 90 minutes, it's cleansing your solar plexus, so that stress that you had is not only gone, but it's been replaced with bliss. As Kim's saying, blissful, been replaced with bliss. Yeah, such a great experience. Lost a friend. Like, she literally was so embarrassed, she didn't want to hang out with us anymore because of that. And I always thought to myself, I go, what's wrong with being hysterical, right? Solar plexus, yeah. What's wrong with being hysterical? We weren't attacking anyone. We weren't putting anyone down. We weren't belittling anyone. We weren't excluding anyone. We're like, we're laughing. We don't know why we're laughing. Let's all join in the laughter. And there were moments with our dinner that her friends were joining us in the laughter. But you have to keep in mind, we live in Colorado. Marijuana is legal. Edibles are legal, which is a stronger, more potent form of marijuana. So they probably were thinking we were laughing hysterically because we were high, because we were on drugs. And maybe they were averse to drugs, right? They didn't want to connect with that energy, which is understandable, but we were high on essential oils. Fascinating, right? But it was the consecration and the sequence, the chakras and the sequence of putting it on that had the effect. If it was just ordinary essential oil placed on one or two chakras, it wouldn't have had the same effect. So very, very grateful to my friend who wrote that, who wrote about that. Super, super grateful. So we covered a lot. We talked a lot. Again, pitching Master Chola's book, The Chakras and Their Functions. That's what we started this stream off tonight on. Read this book. It's super thin, straight to the point, extremely informative, very practical, will transform your life. Remember, there's not just 7 chakras, and there's not just 11 chakras. There's many, many, many chakras. But this book goes into the 11 major chakras. The Chakras and Their Functions by Master Choa Kok Sui. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for joining me this Friday snowy evening here in Denver, Colorado. I think it's still snowing out. It's been snowing out all day and last night. It started last night. And I hope you have a beautiful weekend. We'll jump on at some point this weekend to throw out another stream. If you have a suggestion of a topic you would like us to cover, please leave it in the comments section below on Facebook. And then we'll put it in the memory bank and then come up with a stream about that thing. For those of you looking for healing, you can hire me at my website, ChristianRLong.com. It's my name. You can't miss it. ChristianRLong.com. Schedule a healing directly on the website. We do it over Zoom or Skype or FaceTime, whichever is most convenient for you, and move you from where you are to where you want to be. Pranic healing is extremely comprehensive, extremely powerful, and has alleviated the suffering of millions of people around the world over the past 30 years. So it's a great system, dedicated my life to it. So far, so good. So love you guys very, very much. This is Christian Long, Life Enhancement Consultant, wishing you a beautiful Friday night, a beautiful weekend, and a beautiful life. Atma. Namaste. Bye bye.